He's such an honor to have this guy come up here. Justin Koch, known him, I don't know how many years, a lot of years. And he's just one of the most fantastic practice managers in the country. Does miraculous stuff. This is the guy we had the beer bet on to go to $1 million first month on a scratch office. And I guess I bought the beer, but whatever, he did really, really well. He's got a lot of great stuff to talk with you about. He's just an immaculate statistician, great business manager, wonderful guy. You're gonna love him, I'm telling you. See you,
Thanks, John.
See you, pal.
Can I have that?
No, you can't have it.
Thank you.
Okay. You want this? They give you one?
No, I'm mic'd up. I just needed that. Wow, that's really bright. Hi, guys. Welcome. I'm glad we're here. Masked, unmasked, whatever. I'm just glad that we're here. Glad to see you all. Many new faces. A lot of people I've known for years. I appreciate you guys being here. So I'm going to do things a little bit different than I have in the past. I usually get up here and I talk about kind of one thing, and that's not what we're going to do today. Nicole's asked, but she called me and asked if I could speak. She asked about maybe making this a full-on Q&A. And some questions were, or some of you were sent the opportunity to submit your questions in advance. And so I've got some already kind of pre-planned questions that we're going to go through. But this is 100% interactive. I want you guys, if we're talking about something and it doesn't make sense, if it does make sense, if you want to throw something in, if you want to tell jokes, it doesn't really matter to me. We're going to make this very interactive. I want to answer as many questions as I can while I'm up here today. I know a lot of this stuff for some of you guys that are newer with the whole idea of modification of everything that you think your practice was supposed to be is very challenging, and there's a lot of questions. And I've gone through all this stuff. I've been doing it for 15 years with extended hours, extended days, doing almost everything that John and many of the other speakers that are going to be up here this week have talked about. So I've gone through the struggles. I've gone through these challenges. I've dealt with staff pushback. I've dealt with all of the things that come with that. And so I'm a pretty good resource when it comes to how to overcome a lot of that stuff. So please feel free, raise your hands. I think they've got mics that are going to be walking around here throughout the presentation. So, I'm sorry? Okay, I thought I heard somebody say something. So, this is one, I think I'm on a lot of dental forums, and this is like the number one thing that I see people talking about is to go fee for service or continue on as a PPO office. I think if you have been practicing for 25 or 30 years and have always been a fee for service practice, you're probably going to be able to finish your career that way. If you're a young dentist trying to go fee for service, you're probably not going to have a career. I don't think I just don't believe that it's possible. Hey, can you guys turn those lights down just a little bit? They're blinding. I can't even see anyone in the audience. Is that possible? So as far as PPO and fee for service goes, I am very much in favor of a PPO model. It's all fee for service because patients are paying a large percentage of what you do for them in your office with money. So that's fee for service. Just a third party is helping out with that. I'm not necessarily saying that you need to go into network with many or any of the insurance companies. What I am saying though, when I say PPO office, is take the assignment of the benefit on behalf of your patient. And I think most of you, if not all of you, do that already, because if you ask your patient to pay you 100% of the procedure and give them a claim form, they're not going to come back to you because that's a really huge inconvenience for anybody. We have a hard enough time navigating the insurance world, and we do this. Our patients have absolutely no idea what they're doing, how to do it. If the insurance company comes back with any additional questions, they don't know what to do with them. We don't even know what to do with them half the time.
Hey, Justin, up front.
Yeah. I seriously, I
Right
can't
here,
see anything.
I have a question.
Yes.
Question right here.
Oh,
Here,
okay.
Here. Now, I hear John talk a lot about the higher the amount that the patient has to pay, the lower the possibility that they're going to do the treatment. Now, how do you handle a bridge? We're PPO.
Sure.
But the copay for a bridge can be between $1,000 and $2,000.
$2,500, sure.
Yeah.
So
How do you handle that?
So I don't want anybody to misunderstand when we talk about minimizing the patient's out of pocket. We're not saying don't do the dentistry. We're not saying don't present that dentistry. Obviously, it's needed. What we're really talking about is you don't have the ability to do that with a patient that you don't know yet. And that is really the thing about the likability limit. It's not that your likability limit can't grow, and this is a Todd Bickling thing. Where is Todd in here? So this is Todd's thing. It's the likability, and Todd's likability limit is much higher than, say, a young associate coming right out of school, because he's got way better communication skills. He understands, he's got a high level of emotional intelligence while he's talking to his patients. He knows where his limit is with these patients. So he can build trust much quicker than, say, a young doctor who's not even that confident in their own abilities yet. So it doesn't mean don't present it. It just means proceed with caution more than anything, because the dentistry has to get done. And so, and it's also about how you present it, right? So if you take a person who comes into your office, you've met them for 5 minutes, you go through and it's like, hey, you know, I looked at all these x-rays and I did an oral evaluation, and here's your $10,000 treatment plan. We've already started off on the wrong foot with this person.
Yeah.
You know, I use the old oil change analogy. They come in, you go to for $29.95 oil change, and they come in and they're like, your oil's really bad. We need to do a special oil change for you. And have you seen the calipers on your brakes? We need to rebuild those, and your tires are bald, and we need to do a head job on your engine, and we need to replace your headlight fluid. And all of this, yeah, y'all can laugh, that's a joke, that's not even a thing. But we tell them a bunch of things that they don't understand about their mouth, and they came in for their $29.95 oil change. That's their free cleaning. And now all of a sudden you're like, these guys look like a bunch of con artists, a bunch of crooks. They're just trying to take me for everything I've got. And that's not our point at all. We just don't use a lot of great judgment calls with new people that walk in our office. And we think that we need to go down, and this, I have had to have this conversation with doctors for years, is, well, I am obligated by law to tell this patient every single thing that's going on in their mouth.
But what if they come in and they've got 4 abscesses, three broken teeth where the gum has grown up over the tooth? Well, what do you do?
So
I mean, you've got to tell them.
your
face is going to be swollen out to here if we don't do, you know,
okay,
this
but these
treatment
are
immediately.
what you're referring to. These don't happen. This isn't every patient that walks in your door.
Right, yeah.
This is the exception to the rule. And when this patient walks in, they've been in this condition for a long time, most likely. And because you walk into the room and you say, are you having any pain? They're like, no. And you're like, that is not humanly possible that you don't have any pain, because I just looked at your x-rays and it hurts me. Right? So I know what you're talking about. But this patient comes in and we've got a big problem that we have to resolve. It didn't happen yesterday. We don't have to fix it today. But we need to have an honest conversation with that patient about what their expectations are and how they want to get to that spot. That's what you do with that patient.
Okay, now another thing, what I am finding is insurance companies are refusing to pay treatment. Even if I've had a root canal, they are now refusing to pay for crowns. How do you predetermine all your treatment for crowns? Richard, what do you?
Nope, I don't do any of that.
Do you do any predetermined?
That's a huge waste of time.
Okay, but wait a minute. Then what happens if you sell them a crown, and they want a crown, and then you say, oh, the insurance will probably pay 50%. They don't. Now the patient's not going to pay you.
So why would the insurance company not pay for 50% on a crown that just had a root canal?
That's a good question, but I've had Delta Dental refuse more than one.
Well, Delta Dental wants to refuse anything and everything that you submit to them. So we're talking about two different things. We're talking about, was there a necessity for that service, or was there not a necessity for that service, or are they going to reduce the fee, or are they going to downgrade it to something else? If you're doing a molar endo, they cannot reduce, especially if you've got images, you've got intraoral photos of the buildup that you did, and then you've got a pre-op and a post-op or a post-cementation X-ray of that crown. They're going to pay you for it. But the way I look at it is I'm better with insurance than my patient ever will be. And I need to understand if there's a realistic expectation of getting payment from this insurance company. I'm not going to ask my patient for that money. I'm going to do it, and if I don't get all of the diagnostic information that's required for us to get paid, that's my fault. So I'm not gonna go ask the patient for that because they didn't do anything wrong. They just came in to get their tooth fixed. Right. So I'm gonna eat that cost. But that's why you have to be very careful about with your dental assistants and your doctors about the information that you're actually gathering to get paid by the insurance companies, because they're getting sneakier and sneakier and sneakier and finding ways to just not pay you for stuff. But you have to make sure that you're doing your part and staying on top of what the insurance company is trying to do every year. And so they need better x-rays, they need better pictures. Intraoral pictures are one of the best things to get you paid for your dentistry, way more so than an x-ray. So make sure you take a lot of good pictures. So Mouthwatch is a great camera. It integrates with most of the imaging softwares. They're like $299, and you can get them, and they last, and they take really great pictures. And you can have them in every single operatory, so whenever you need a picture, it's right there and ready for you. All right, so what percentage of my patients are PPO? 80%. 80% of our patients are PPO patients. The other 20% are in our in-office dental plan. So we have a membership. I think if you've been with ChrisAd for a minute, you do too. It is probably the best thing that you can do for uninsured patients to make them sticky to your practice, because you're gonna take a fee cut off of your UCR, but this is gonna be your patient. They're gonna pay you whatever your price for the membership is, but they're gonna be your patient. It makes them very sticky to your practice. If it were up to me, that would be the only kind of patients I had were membership patients, because then the relationship is between you and the patient, not a third party. However, that's not the world in which we live in. But I would, if I were you, I would spend a tremendous amount of time perfecting and honing your membership program and making it known to every single small business in your city that doesn't necessarily have dental benefits for their employees. It's a great tool to bring in new patients, and they're some of the best patients because now they've actually paid for that membership, so they tend to come back more regularly. With dental benefits, it's something that patients don't, or it's something the customer doesn't understand that they pay for, even though it comes out of their paycheck. They don't see it. It's not something that's on their credit card bill. So to them, it's free. So they don't have as much reason to feel like they need to use what they've paid for.
Justin.
Yes.
I'm back here by the sound booth.
Okay. Yes.
Do you do one-time fee for your dental plan for your patients, or do you charge it out monthly?
So for years we did pay up front. And we just recently started doing a lot of research with the companies that will help you manage it. And we chose to go with a company called BoomCloud. And so we do monthly for our patients now. We've got 3 different options for them. It's kind of a gold, silver, platinum. And we're just rolling that out. So I can't really give you a lot of feedback on it right now, but I've been really impressed with BoomCloud to this point. It really takes the guesswork out of managing your in-office dental plans. And kind of the cool thing about it is, much like an insurance premium, where if you take it all up front, you can't collect anything else from that patient again until they come back in next time, and it might be 18 months from now when you re-up their plan. So you're just basically, they're getting to go on their own contract as much as they can, but with us, with BoomCloud, it's like an insurance premium. It just evergreens every single month. It's a 12-month commitment, and it just evergreens. So even if they're not coming in, we're collecting premiums. I mean, my goal is not to collect premiums. My goal is to take care of the patients. But if they're not going to come in, at least we're making a little money at the same time. So I'd look into BoomCloud if I were you guys, and you really want to take your in-office payment or your in-office plan kind of to the next level. They're really good. But as far as PPO goes, I probably am in the same boat as most of you guys. Probably your largest payer is Delta Dental. Yeah, they're the worst. But there's a reason that everybody's in network with Delta Dental, whether it be Premier, whether it be PPO. It's because they're so big. They're the 800-pound gorilla, and they've figured out how to make your life an absolute living hell if you're not in network with them. So you just figure it out and you do it, and that's what we've done. And I think all of you guys are in the same boat going, well, that's not fair. It isn't fair. But guess what? It's the way that it is, and you got to figure out how to make it work. But that doesn't mean that you have to be in network with all of the other ones. Delta's just made it extra hard by sending the checks to the patient, which all of you guys have experienced that, and then the patient's like, I didn't get it. And they're like, but then you call the insurance, like, yeah, but it got cashed. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not bringing that in. So you get in this argument with the patient about the money that's yours for the services you provided them. And so it's a nightmare. So you got to be in network with them. It's an unfortunate reality of what the world in which we live in. And I'm sure there are probably some doctors out there like, I've never been in network with Delta Dental and it works great. I am super happy for you and I wish I could do that in my organization, but I can't see how that would work.
Hey, John, a question?
Yes.
I wanted to know about having payment plans. Is that BoomCloud a membership for payment plans?
No. So they don't do payment plans. And as of right now, we don't do in-office payment plans. And that's specific for the reason that I'm not a bank and I don't have the same tools in place to quantify my patient's ability to repay me. So I choose not to provide in-office payment plans to our patients, even though that's what they really want. I don't have the money to do that, which most of you probably feel me on that one.
So on your BoomCloud, I looked it up in Google, but what are you actually doing with BoomCloud?
BoomCloud is actually the company that facilitates all of our memberships. So every patient that has a membership in our office or uses our dental plan, we just call it the membership, right? Any patient that has a membership in our office, they can sign up there, they make all their payments there, they can modify their type of plan right there instead of having to come into the office or somebody doing it. So they manage it all themselves, and then we reconcile at the end of the month of how many patients we have, how much money we got, who's out of date. So when we verify, much like we would verify a patient's insurance benefits when they come in, on that same person who's a membership partner in our organization, we would just verify that they're up to date on their payment, and if they're not, we would ask them to complete that payment through their portal, and BoomCloud does all of that, and then they just send us the money for all the
But
money.
are you using it for all your patients or just the ones that sign up for your discount plan?
Well, that's the only thing it's used for.
Just the discount plan?
It's not a payment service. We're not using them to do payment plans. Now, I don't know if they offer that solution. It wasn't something that I looked into for that with them, because no matter who's facilitating that, I'm still taking on the liability on payment plans, and I'm not in a position to take on 100% of the liability from the insurance company and the patient. So we got to have some money coming in from somebody.
Okay, thank you.
But as far as payment plans go, so we do use a lot of partners. We use, Care Credit, Green Sky, Lending Point, and if you guys haven't talked to FeatherPay, we work with those guys. We've been working with them for about 3 months now, and they have one of the most intuitive ways for our patients to pay that I've ever seen. Basically, we, through Treatment 24/7, we'll send them a treatment plan. It's got a QR code on it. They can scan the QR code, and it's kind of like Apple Pay for dentistry. The patient can then and there see the treatment plan, exactly how much it costs, and they can choose how they want to pay. They can put some of it on third party. They can use an FSA. They can use a credit card. They can use a parent's credit card. They can use their grandma's credit card. They can use their neighbor's credit card. It doesn't matter. They can pay with 20 different credit cards if they want to in the privacy of their own home or right in the chair without having to go up to the front desk and go pick a card, any card, put it on all 5 of these, which is a very embarrassing thing for most patients. They can do it without that kind of that kind of guilt of not being able to pay for it. So they can do it on their own. So that's a really great thing that we use. And we've already seen an uptick in our case acceptance just by having patients with the ability to pay across multiple platforms. It's really cool. It's called FeatherPay. So you're going to go talk to Craig and Michael and Bobby at FeatherPay and Treatment 24/7 when we're done during the next break. They're going to tell you all about it. And so So this is a fun one and this is something that we've, I'm sorry, yes. Where are we at?
I'm here. What's the best way to determine what you should charge for your membership plan, and whether it's like ours is an annual fee and then we offer a discount. And there's different age groups or family members, but I just question, is it the right approach, or what should we be looking at to determine? Are there certain margins? Just anything you can help with.
So the way that we kind of did ours is you look at, so our silver plan is pretty much just a preventative plan. And so that's going to get them their cleanings, exams, x-rays, and a discount off of basic restorative dentistry. And then the gold has got a larger discount. It's got some other things added to it, and our platinum's got orthodontic discounts. And I think it's up to 50% off of all of our restorative. But the plan's a lot more expensive. So it's a much higher monthly fee. It's a much higher monthly premium, but it covers 50% of all the restorative needs that they have. It covers, I think, like 25% off of ortho. We spent a tremendous amount of time going back and forth on how to structure this. And I can't tell you how to do it for your practice because it's going to be different for everybody. And we looked at it and said, okay, at the end of the day, kind of like actuarials from the insurance company, this makes sense for us because we're going to get X amount of dollars per month from this entire family, and we're going to be giving away a little bit, but it brings a lot of stickiness to the whole family, to your practice. And so we're willing to say, hey, we're going to give away 50% of our dentistry, but you got to remember, it's off of your usual and customary fee to begin with. So you're already doing that with Delta Dental anyway, so what difference does it make, right? Most of you are probably at a 40% discount off your UCR with Delta. So why not just give that same courtesy to your patients that trusted you instead of Delta, and then you don't have to wait to get paid. So you just get your money right now. So that's kind of how we looked at it, is what's our worst fee schedule, and we're willing to take that on our best plan.
Corey said to interrupt you. All right. Sorry, it's high school all over again, my hand's shaking. So these amazing ChrisAD doctors, they've got hygienists checking cleaning 3 patients an hour. They're able to sneak in a cleaning on an emergency patient that comes in and is just waiting, to get their procedure done. How do you balance kind of being overbooked with being overstaffed? That's kind of the big thing that's kind of weighing on my mind. How do I ask more of my staff to do this kind of stuff? How does that work?
Well, I mean, just ask them. Say, hey, do better. No, I'm just totally kidding. I mean, I tried that. It doesn't work. No, so the reality of this is rarely, if ever, are any of even the best scheduled offices going to see 3 patients an hour. It just doesn't happen that way. We kind of create we've created a system that we are so accessible to our patients that we're almost, sometimes we feel a little too accessible to them, because, a lot of people say, hey, exclusivity makes people want you more. That's not real in our world. It makes them want to go find a new dentist if you don't have availability for them. So what we do is we overbook our schedule by 30%. So yes, I'm scheduling 3 patients per hour per hygienist that's working in my office. That doesn't happen. We have probably a 35 to 40% fall off rate in any given hour of hygiene. So my hygienists on average see about it's a little bit less than 2. It's about 1.65, 1.75 patients per hour is what they typically average. So I wouldn't expect them to see 3 patients an hour for a 12-hour workday. That's insane. And I don't expect the doctors to do checks on 3 patients, or every single hygienist, 3 patients per hour. It wouldn't work. But what also doesn't work is scheduling what you want when you know what's going to happen is different. So if you schedule your hygienist 1 patient an hour, good luck. If you schedule them 2, they'll see 1. If you schedule them 3, they'll see about 1.5 to less than 2. And so if you know what's going to happen, schedule for that and talk your team off of a ledge from there. Because I promise you, the first time you show a hygienist 3 patients scheduled an hour for 12 hours, they're going to ask you to call in the National Guard because that's impossible. But it's not impossible because I've got the data to show, ChrisAD's got the data to show, anybody that's done this for any period of time's got the data to show that it's just going to happen. I don't care where you live, who your patients are, what demographic you are, you're going to have failure in your hygiene department. So schedule for that. And then just help your team understand that this is done in an effort to allow you to see the correct number of patients. So, because nobody wants to be standing around twiddling their thumbs. Because when they're standing around, what does everybody want them to do? Get on the phones and call patients. Nobody wants to get on the phone and call patients. So if we schedule better to keep them from having that lull time to be on the phone calling patients, they get to actually see patients. So just help them through that process, helping them understand why we're scheduling that way. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got a question. So regarding that, when you're scheduling for more than basically what your hygienist can see, do you kind of keep, okay, so in the hygiene column, do you keep a column open for patients that are wanting to call in and schedule, or do you already book them out? Do you overbook?
Okay, help me understand that question.
Okay.
I think I understand, but help me.
So do you keep a column open for that hygienist for patients that are calling in and want an appointment, or do you pre-book that appointment out, like 6 months in the future?
No, so I'm gonna pre-appoint every single patient that comes through my office.
Right.
That's number one. That's the number one thing that we focus on, because as much as I love new patients, I love my existing patients better. And you all should love your existing patients more than you love new patients, because your new patients don't even know you yet.
Hey,
So,
Justin,
yes.
you said you do 3 per hour. So normally you're doing 2, doing assisted?
Correct.
So in that third one, is that a patient who, just like the other 2 patients, is someone who wants an appointment? Or is that somebody who has no-showed before, kind of like a phantom column, or what is that third person?
No, we're just, so, I've got, I may have, 7 rooms that or 6 rooms that I'm willing to see hygiene patients out of, but I'm gonna schedule 8. And, I hear phantom columns, all that kind of stuff. I don't really know what that means, because that sounds like a ghost to me, and it sounds like that patient's not expected to show up. And it's just another column of patients. And you should treat it as such. It's just another column of patients. And if you know that you're gonna have failure across all of your columns of patients, schedule more of them. You don't have to, you know that Dentrix will actually let you put more columns than you have chairs in your office? They don't even know how many chairs you have. They'll let you do that, I promise. Nobody once called me and said, "You can't do that, Justin." So I did it, and it works out pretty good. You don't have to follow the number of chairs that you have. Now, I'm not saying double the number of chairs that you have in columns and fill them all. That would be ridiculous. But if you're limiting to yourself to just the number of chairs that you have, then you're missing a tremendous amount of opportunity through your day, because it will inevitably fall off at some point. So just use it. And just understand that you're not doing your patients a disservice by overscheduling them. They're doing us a disservice for the years of not showing up like they should have, requiring us to have to schedule like this. Sorry, that's what it is. Years of people treating us like our time doesn't matter has caused us to have to schedule in an effort to make money to pay the people that work with us and take care of the patients that do show up. Just the long and short of it. That's where we're at.
Hello.
Hi.
So yeah, we've scheduled 3 before, and then all 3 showed up.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 are showing up. Then we're running behind, and the and the other 2 patients are now mad. Our biggest complaint at our office is wait time, and so I know you're saying we shouldn't care about their time, but most of them aren't coming back because of time.
So.
And then we're running around with our heads cut off. They feel like a number. They feel like we're not giving, they feel rushed. They feel like the cleaning was rushed, the quality of care. So it's I don't know, I don't think it's a...
How many patients a month do you see in hygiene? Not new patients, just how many patients a month do you guys see?
250.
How many hours are you open?
I'm sorry, what?
How many hours are you open a month?
136
A month or a week?
a month.
Okay. I don't know what that comes out to a week. What is that?
Oh,
Better math than me.
I'm sorry, I got paid for 136. 270 about.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking for this math is you're telling me what happened in an hour. How many of those hours did that happen in?
We typically keep it
Of the 270 hours that you see patients in hygiene in a month, how many times did that happen?
not often because we typically don't schedule 3, but sometimes that we do. But that phantom
So
column.
sometimes the planets will align.
But what I'm
the
saying,
stars
if
will-
now, if we purposely book 3, what are we going to do when they start to all 3 show up?
So the reality of it is you do need to be a little bit discerning in what you schedule there. It can't just be all things all the time anywhere. So you're not going to want to schedule 3 new patients per hour with a hygienist. That's almost impossible. You don't want to schedule 2 quads of scaling route planning with 2 new patients for that patient. You don't want to do that. So, and I'm not saying you have to be crazy scientific with it. You just need to have a couple of rules in place. So when you're scheduling these, you're not making it impossible to handle. But one of the things that I always like to remind everybody is that when shit hits the fan, which typically isn't that often, it's just what we remember. And that's what everybody really needs to remember, is that it's our human nature to remember the worst thing that happened in our day, not how many times it went the way we planned it to go. And so that's why I do this with my team all the time about what percentage of the time did this actually happen versus what you feel like it happened. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have the same issue. I support what you're saying 100% on this. What we've recently had a very similar feeling, people showing up at the same time and having that kind of issue. What we found to be helpful was staggering them. And so we gave every hygiene patient 1 hour, and say there were 4 columns booked, we would put 1 and 3 on the half hour and 2 and 4 on the hour. And it kind of hedged against all 3 people showing up at all the same time. But the cancellations are like very factual. And I think the staggering really helped us kind of like find the middle ground there.
And that works in some offices. We used to stagger, and the only reason that we don't stagger anymore, because for me it makes a lot of sense to do that. The reason that we stopped doing that is because it made it very challenging to find really good stopping points for doctors because if every exam's at a different 15-minute or 30-minute interval, it makes it very challenging for your doctors to find good stopping points from their restorative to get over and do those exams. I'm not saying that that's not a great solution. For us, the reason that we modified it was because it was like every 15 minutes the doctor was being asked to go into an exam instead of saying, hey, can you come do 3?
Well, hey, can I just say something? Both of your problems, you guys, this is Corey right here. It sounds like they could be solved,
that's what those are
solved
for.
by just getting more hygiene. I mean, if you're one of the fortunate few where everybody shows up and it's predictable and they keep their appointments and they're compliant, then get more hygiene. That seems like the easiest answer. Most practices don't have those ailments, I promise you.
Yeah, they really don't.
We see it every day.
And again, I'm talking about experiences that have happened in our 7 offices, and that, you know, the thousands of patients that we see and the thousands of hours that were, you know, open a year. And I don't believe that my issues and the way that we handle things are much different than everyone else's issues out there. And so I really believe that when you have these issues, they're isolated. And I'm not saying they're not isolated to once a day. So it may happen 5 or 6 or 7 times during the week, or maybe in a couple of hours, but I promise you it didn't happen for 12 hours of a day.
Justin, middle right.
Yeah. Which right? My right or your right? Oh, okay.
So putting things back in perspective, let's, break it down all the way to the bottom. 1 doctor, 1 hygienist, 3 chairs. If I'm running 4 columns and I'm staggering them as well, what is your recommendation? Can I go to 5 columns? And if I go to 5 columns, do I still keep them staggered, or do I, I'm just
Are you talking about 1 doctor and 5 columns of hygiene?
No, I'm talking about 1 doctor, 1 hygienist, and 3 columns with 3 chairs, or 4 columns with 3 chairs.
So
just trying to understand, what is, if I break it down to the simplest form.
So the simplest form would be to have more hygiene in the morning, almost no hygiene in the middle of the day, do all your restorative there, take the chairs that you want, take the 3 chairs for yourself, have as many assistants as you want, send your hygienist to lunch for 3 hours, bring them back, and then focus almost exclusively on hygiene. So then all you're doing is checks at the very end of the day. Now, I understand that that doesn't work in all worlds. That would be the perfect scenario where you've got the first 3 hours of the morning, the last 3 hours of the day, and everything else in between is nothing but restorative. And I know that that's not going to happen all the time, but if you're working with 3 chairs, honestly, I would at least schedule a 4th chair. I would, at the very least, schedule a 4th chair. Now, the one thing you do have to be cautious with is some of your practices are quite large, some of them are smaller. The smaller your practice, the less leeway you have to over-create columns. The bigger your practice, the more leeway you have because you usually will have a spare chair here and there. If you're working 3 chairs, you've got less room for error.
Justin?
Yes.
Right here.
Right where? I'm serious, I can't see anything.
Justin, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I heard that voice. I knew it was Raj.
It's a very common problem it's not a problem, but it's a solution to have multiple people show up for the same appointment. The way we deal with it is that, first of all, we always, convincing our doctors to say, every time you do an exam over there for hygiene, it's $1,000. If the hygienists are overbooked, then our doctors do jump in. They will help the hygienist. They will do the cleaning. My hygienist wants to be double booked, triple booked, because we pay them $30 additional per patient. Additional patient seen. We literally, if there are problems like that, doctor will do 1-minute meeting, quickly staff, and how to handle it. It's, it's how you set up, what are your expectations, and it is there. It's a good problem to have, honestly.
It is, and I agree with you, and that is, that's one of the reasons, one of the ways that we were able to get our hygienists past the idea of what 3 patients per hour look like was we do pay them per patient that they see. So they get an hourly rate, but plus they get paid per patient that they see. And that doesn't cause them to be not good hygienists. It causes them to actually understand the business of what we do also. And when I say, hey, look, I need to schedule you 3 patients per hour so that you can maximize your earning potential without being overwhelmed, then it starts to make sense to them. Because if I schedule them 2, they'll see 1, and they'll make the least amount of money possible. If I schedule them 3, they'll see typically 2, which is where we want them to be, with a dedicated hygiene assistant, which is very feasible for anybody who's a hygienist in this room. If you say you can't do that, then you're not a very good hygienist, because you're working like a provider. You've got a dedicated assistant that's doing all of the ancillary stuff that is below your license. And so if I set up a schedule to be financially superior for you, then it makes sense that you would want me to schedule that way. But if you're not paying your hygienist that way, then they're just working harder for you without compensation on the other side of it. So if you're not paying them per patient and you're double and triple booking them, you should really look at modifying your pay structure to pay them per patient so that they have an incentive to want to schedule that way. I'm sorry? So this is the question was, why not pay the hygienist a percentage of their collections? And I have very strong feelings about this. I'm about to tell you about it. So the reason that I don't like paying hygienists off of a percentage of collections is this. And you might say, well, you're a bit hypocritical because you'll pay a doctor that way, but you're not going to pay a hygienist that way, right? So if a hygienist is strictly paid off of a percentage of what they produce or collect, and just a quick roundabout, how many procedures can a hygienist do? How many procedures are in their wheelhouse? 5, 6, maybe? 5, 6? Okay. How many procedures are in a dentist's wheelhouse? A lot. Can a hygienist go back to an AEGD or residency to become a more advanced level hygienist that can do more procedures? Not typically, that I've heard of. But a doctor can go back to an AEGD, they can go back to a residency, they can learn how to do a lot more complicated things, and so it makes a lot more sense. But if you tell me I'm going to pay you a percentage of everything you do, and I'd really like for you to keep the highest paid stuff to a minimum, and the lowest paid stuff to a maximum, that doesn't sound very fair to me. And so what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing a very shifting in how much perio you have in your office. You're going to start getting very heavy-handed hygienists, not because they want to be that way, it's just, this is kind of how I get paid. And then all of a sudden they're going to want to start selling Gidgets and Wizmos and potions and crap because they want to make a percentage off of everything they sell. I don't sell shit in my office because I don't want my patients to feel like they're getting a bill of goods every time they walk in the door. So I'm really cautious, and this is an ongoing debate with everybody, with multiple people out there as to how you pay a hygienist. I think paying them hourly is a poor way because you're not getting the best that you can out of that hygienist, especially if it's one patient an hour. That hygienist brings them back, sets up the room, turns the room, does the instruments, all that kind of stuff, wasted time. They're doing so many things that are so far below their pay grade. And then if you're paying them as a commission, they start to find themselves, whether they want to be that person or not, being a bit heavy-handed, finding calculus that doesn't exist, probing that doesn't necessarily represent this patient's perio health. And then all of a sudden you have a 50% perio office that was not that before. And then, or if you say, hey, look, I'm going to pay you X dollars per hour, and then I'm going to pay you $30 a patient that you see, then you're going to make, you could make $90 an hour if you see 2 patients an hour, you know? And, or if you do see 3, hey, you know what? Is it feasible? Who are my hygienists in here? Is it feasible to see a family of 3 when 2 of them are under the age of 14 and you've got mom and 2 kids? Is it easy? Is it feasible to take care of all 3 of them if you have dedicated assistants in 1 hour? So that right there is a $90 an hour plus their hourly wage. Now I have a very patient-centric, motivated hygienist, right? And they made you a shit ton of money doing it that way, as opposed to getting paid a percentage of, because now they're going to see that kid and they're going to go, crap, I don't want to see the kid. Then it's like rock, paper, scissors to see who has to do the pedo prophy, the least paid thing in your office. So if it works in some offices, that's great. In my organization and the way that I feel about it, I don't think it's the best way to pay hygienists.
Hi. I'm going to back up a little bit and ask about your hygiene recall protocol. So I wanted to know what tools you're using, what programs or methods you're using to actually fill the hygiene schedule.
Sure.
We're a 20-year-old practice. You know, we're very stable. We have a great patient population, but it seems like we always have trouble actually filling the schedule.
Okay, and you're primarily talking about hygiene, correct?
Right.
Okay, so the number one thing that gets overlooked by absolutely every practice is your pre-appointment rate. And I promise I could probably go through here and I can ask everybody and they're like, no, we're perfect. We're 100% on our pre-appointment rate. And if I were able to get into your database, I could show you that you're probably about 65 to 70%. And the reason I know this is because I used to have these conversations with my hygiene team and I'm like, why are we not rescheduling every patient that comes into our hygiene department? And they look me square in the face and they go, but we are. And I say, well, if 65% of the time is every time, then you guys are right on point. But they don't realize that, and hygiene reappointment, whose job is that in your office? It's everybody's job, right? When it's everybody's responsibility, it's nobody's job. And then it's like, no, she reappointed. No, he did it. No, they did it. And then that patient's gone and they didn't get reappointed and we're sitting at the 65, 75% reappointment rate because it wasn't anybody's responsibility, anybody's job. And so the number one thing that you can do is to ensure that every single person that walks through your door, and I talked about this last year, has a next appointment. They have to have a next appointment. And I'm talking about emergencies, I'm talking about restorative patients. How many times, office managers, leaders in the, how many times does a patient come in to get a crown seated and they walk out the door and they've not been in and they don't have their next appointment scheduled at all. Because I found that doctors and clinical assistants don't tend to focus or care about that very much. They cared about that one particular procedure. So if every single person that walks through the door, emergencies, restorative dentistry, things that you're doing today, if you focus on getting them scheduled, even if their next appointment is just more restorative, the next appointment eventually will always lead to getting them into your hygiene department. So if your team is absolutely 100% focused on every single person, not just your hygiene patients, getting reappointed in some form or fashion. Now, I'm gonna talk treatment 24/7. We've spent years developing this to make our practice better, and it's helped practices all over the country. It's got a report that prints out at the beginning of the day. It's called your practice vision, or your, what's it, Bobby? Something. It's Daily Vision. I thought it was practice vision. Daily Vision, and it shows you everybody that walked into your door yesterday that did not get scheduled their next appointment. So you can immediately jump on that list to call them and get them reappointed 6 months from now. Because if you don't do that now, 6 months is gonna come and go on that, and now that person's just on the big list that everybody has a copy of and nobody ever gets anything out of, the big list. Y'all probably all have one of those. But if you can call them tomorrow and say, hey, you know what? We made a mistake. We didn't get you scheduled for your very important 6-month cleaning. Let's go ahead and get that. What time do you get off work? And then you get them in weekend, evenings, morning, whatever it is. And so that's a good starting point. So if you make your hole much smaller, then it's easier to dig out of. And so if you're doing a much better job on the front end, you don't have to work so hard on the back end, is where I'm going with this. And if all of your processes and your policies and your procedures are designed around that one thing, the word next is said in my organization hundreds of times per day at all of my offices. Does that patient have their next appointment? Did we get them their next appointment? Ma'am, Mrs. Jones, do you have your next appointment? I don't even specify what it is. I just want to know that you got something on our calendar with your name on it.
Excuse me? So I understand overbooking and booking 3 patients an hour. Do you have any recommendations, because we're in a pandemic and patients are canceling left and right because of COVID? So even though we are booking maybe even a ghost column, patients aren't keeping their appointments.
So I wish I had an answer for COVID. COVID has caused so many things that we never thought we would see in our industry, across all industries. An air conditioner manufacturer told me it's gonna be 6 months to get me a unit for one of my buildings. I thought that was absurd, but we're seeing things that we never thought we would see before. Our average no-show rate prior to the pandemic and kind of coming back was, we were about anywhere between about 27 to about 33, depending on the office that we were at. We were well into the mid to high 40s just a month ago. So we're right there with you. I mean, and the unfortunate reality of it is I can't tell you, you have to come to this appointment. I can encourage you to come to it, but I can't make you come. And I know it's stressful when you're sitting there going, okay, well, I'm already overbooked. Everybody's already freaking out about this schedule. And now I feel like I should overbook some more. Has anybody overbooked even more than they did before because of this? Yeah, so how did it work out? It worked out well. Yeah, but when you do that, I'm not saying make that your new baseline. Monitor what's going on in your community, and if 40% is your new 30%, manage that, and then if you start to see an exorbitant amount of everybody showing up at the same time, pivot and go back to where you were. You don't have to make that your new norm forever. Just kind of look at the situation that you're in right now, make modifications as need be, and because nobody wants to sit around. And if you just schedule more people, then eventually you'll get to the number that you want to see in an hour. But yeah, we ran into the same thing. And so we did the same thing you guys did. We just started to schedule more per hour to get the desired result we were looking for.
Justin?
Yes, where are you?
we call it the actualization rate. We look at how many appointments are on the schedule at the beginning of the week, and then obviously you know how many you ended up with at the end of the week, and you get a percentage. And so we've just been tracking that percentage every single week. It went from being an actualization of 85% all the way down into the 60s. And so because of that, we know that we need to overbook and make our staffs aware that, you know, what the schedule looks like is not actualizing. And so we've got to have more appointments on there to be able to keep everyone employed. And so that's how we're running it right now until it gets out of this weirdness.
That's the kicker, and thank you for that, Andrew. I love that actualization. He's actualized what's happening versus what the pretty schedule looked like. Because you all understand that until the patient walks through the door, that's all it is. It's just a pretty picture. And sometimes maybe a little bit scary, but that's not the reality. And that's what Andrew was saying is you have to work with what's actually happening, not what you think is going to happen. And it may be different in 6 months than it is right now. And patients may come back more readily. And if your actualization goes to 15%, then you overbook by 15%. Or 85%, then you overbook by 15%. But the goal here is not to schedule more patients than you can functionally see in your office and with the team that you have. That's never what this goal is. This isn't about see more patients at the expense of everything. This is about schedule to get what your desired outcome is. And that is to see the number of patients that you are equipped to manage and handle. And while doing that, much like the airlines overbook their airlines, sometimes everybody shows up and they got to start divvying out a little cash. And I'm not saying pay your patients because you're late, but they get, here's a room, here's a voucher, here's a this. It happens, but it happens so infrequently they're willing to take that chance so that they can get the desired result more often than not. And deal with the repercussions when they come at you. And if you're prepared for it and everybody understands this hour might be a real shit show, here's how we're going to manage it. Doc, I might need you to do a cleaning. Okay. Because you know what doctors can do? I didn't say they wanted to, but you know what they can do? They can do cleanings if all hell breaks loose. And doctors, remember that. I didn't say you have to, but it might not be a bad idea if your patients are about to be mad at everybody to go in there and do a quick prophy. I know it probably won't be that good, but at least it's something.
Question, yes, sir. Right. So, 7 to 7, it sounds like it's a 12-hour shift. So do you prefer split shift or for the team and the doctors or complete 12-hour shift?
So I'm not a fan of split shifting. And the reason I'm not a fan of split shifting is because a lot of blame gets pushed and fingers pointed in the middle of the day when this shift leaves and this shift comes on. Now, I'm not opposed to having full dayers with additional members joining at particular points of the day, but having a complete exodus of one team and a brand new team coming in, they're like, that team never does anything. I always have to restock. I got to get these rooms ready. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then the next morning, it's like, last team doesn't ever put shit back. I got to clean the floor. I got to vacuum the carpets. So it's a really tough scenario to deal with a complete exodus of one team and a new team coming in. So I'm not a fan of split shifting for that reason. And a lot of people do it and they do it well. I did it for a while, and the reason I know exactly how it went is because I saw it firsthand, and I was like, we can't do this anymore.
Justin, so one more question from our side. It's off the topic, what we are discussing here, but every practice is seeing problem-focused examinations. We're mainly talking about hygiene here, right? Converting those patients. That's more important for. What is your strategy in your office, or what is the game plan in place to convert those problem-focused or limited exams that's coming as an emergency patients and convert
What about
them
the hygiene patients? What about converting them too? They got a lot of dentistry. How about just conversion and overall?
Right. So what's the strategy for them? Because those patients, we're talking about a principle here. Give the customer what they want, right? Our challenge is, in our practice, is when they come in with a mindset of a problem-focused area. It's hurting me here, right? What strategy specifically you have in place to convert those patients to hygiene patients.
Oh, okay, I understand. So they're going to be probably your hardest sell because unless they're already an existing patient in your practice just coming to you because they're having an emergency, they tend to be the one that lives their life one emergency at a time. So, it's like, hey, I got a tooth extracted a couple years ago, so it's time for this one now. And now, maybe a year from now, I'll get this one taken out. So we try. We have the conversation. We're like, hey, you know what? We might be able to avoid this newfound solution of yours of having one taken out every couple of years and maybe not have any of them taken out if we can just get you on a regular course of action. And I don't have any insurance, it's too expensive, blah, blah, blah. Great news, we have this wonderful in-house dental plan. It makes it very inexpensive for you, and then you get 2 cleanings a year. You get to meet our amazing hygiene team, and they're gonna take great care of you. And maybe we can keep what we've got and figure out ways to replace what you don't. And we have conversations like that, and they don't always sound just like that, but they're kinda like that. But it's an attempt to get this person past the mindset of, this is when I go to the dentist, is to get something pulled. And you're not always gonna win with that person. Actually, about 45 to 50% of the time, you're not gonna win with that person. And I've got the data to back that up. Every single new patient that comes into our practice as an emergency, only about 50% of them are scheduled into our hygiene department at some point. And that's just the way it is. And we're really great communicators. I spend a lot of time with my team teaching them how to communicate with patients, trigger words, things that work, things that get people to do the things you want them to do. And we can still only get about 45 or 50% of those patients back into our hygiene department. But the most important thing that we did is we tried. And we got half of them. If we didn't try and they came in, got their tooth pulled, you're like, there's the door, then you probably would get 0.
Here.
My ears don't work that great. I see, yes.
So how do you what would you recommend to incentivize your staff to schedule those patients before they walk out? Sometimes our patients will say that, oh, I'll call back. And then we end up having a lot of overdue patients.
Now, are you talking about restorative or are you talking about in hygiene?
Both.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with hygiene, and the number one thing that I see that happens incorrectly in reappointing a hygiene patient is we ask them, right? So this isn't a question. We ask a whole lot of questions in our field. We ask them a lot of questions. This isn't a question. It's an expectation that we're gonna schedule your 6-month cleaning. And so the way we do it is anything but new patients are scheduled by my hygiene assistants before the appointment starts. So they bring them back and they'll say, hey, you know what, before we get all hectic, I'm gonna go ahead and schedule your next very important cleaning. And they try to do it on the same day and they go, would you prefer a 5 or 6 o'clock? And that's just how we leave it. And the patient, if they don't want either one of those, they'll tell you real quick, well, this is more convenient for me if I come in at this time. But I'm going to schedule this 6 months from now is Tuesday, January, whatever, would you prefer a 5 or 6 o'clock? And then you stop talking. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna shove this sensor in your face and we're gonna take some x-rays. But that's number one on the hygiene side is that, first of all, like I said, most places don't have a procedure in place on who's responsible for this. And so then you've got 6 layers of failure by the time this patient walked out. The hygiene assistant, the hygienist, the treatment coordinator, the doctor, and the receptionist, not one of them got that patient rescheduled because every one of them thought somebody else did it. So you have to have something in place that says, this is who does this every single time to start. And in clinical, we've got to have better communication. We've got to teach our assistants and our doctors to have those conversations with our patients because doctors, many of you are associates, but most of you are practice owners. And if you're an associate, do you think it's better to have more patients in hygiene or less? If you're a practice owner, do you think it's better to have more patients in hygiene or less? Exactly. So wouldn't it make sense while you're talking to this emergency patient to make them a more sticky patient in your practice? You know what makes patients sticky is your hygiene department. not the fact that you did a 30-second extraction. That'll make them sticky to you in 2 years when they come back for their next emergency, but you know what makes them really sticky as patients? Your hygiene department. So does it make sense that you would do everything in your power to have a communication with this patient to make sure that they're scheduling their hygiene department with your unbelievable hygiene team? Because every time they come into hygiene, they tell you one thing. They tell you that they trust you a little bit more than they did last time. And you know what they do when they trust you more than they did last time? They spend more with you. So your likability limit now just went up, and it's less challenging to meet your financial obligations and just drudging through all those new patients that don't trust you, because you got all of your existing patients that do trust you saying, yeah, doc, you say I need a crown, no problem. Let's get that done today.
Justin, there's really two parts to pre-appointment. There's one that, like you say, every patient has their next appointment. But the B side of that is, where did you appoint them to in the schedule?
So,
right?
and Sean, I'm glad you brought that up. That's, if you noticed, my script was, would you prefer 5 or 6 o'clock? So I don't know all of your hours. Some of you guys are open until, like 1300 and some 13 o'clock. I don't know, but I don't know how late. I don't know how some of you guys can stay open so late. It's crazy to me. But if you're open until 5, make sure that your what you asked them for is the last appointments of your day. If you're only open until 5, probably reconsider about adding additional hours, because that's really when people want to come in. But I will tell you, Mandy's going to talk more about this tomorrow. Pre-appointing patients in the wrong spot is just about as bad as not doing it at all. Because John said it earlier, we're a population of people that don't like to say no. You will literally take something that somebody gave you and eat it because you want to be polite, as you're hating every second of it. And that's what our patients do. They're like, yeah, I'll take that piece of shit appointment that you're giving me, but guess what? I'm not coming. But I'm not going to tell you that. I'll just say, yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Hey, Justin.
Yes, sir.
In the back, over to your left.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems like about 25 minutes ago, you put up a slide for a second that had a question on it, and I'm not sure you answered it. I'd like to hear the answer. It was something like, if somebody calls and says, do you take my insurance, and it's an insurance that you don't take, were you going to answer that question?
I will, if this remote control will work.
Thank you.
Wait, hold on. This one right here? Okay. So, in a world of being a PPO organization, whether you're in network or out of network, there are some very, very, very specific things that need to be communicated to a patient. And I'm going to tell my favorite story, and I'm going to talk about how important making people feel excellent about their insurance is. All right, some of you have heard this story, some of it will be new. How many of you are here with your significant other? How many of you have ever gone out to a party with a significant other? How many of you got ready about an hour and a half before your significant other, watching the game, wondering when your significant other was going to be ready? Right? Little did you know, they were in their closet, probably mascara running down their face because they're crying because nothing fits, nothing looks good, my hair looks like shit. I'm sitting Indian style in my closet wondering, how am I going to get to this party on time? I'm probably already late. And you're out there watching the game going, what's wrong with that person? And they're just freaking out because they don't know how they're going to make it. Nothing fits. And then all of a sudden they have this aha moment. Boom. They put it on. They're like, holy crap, this is fantastic. They look in their hair. Their hair was perfect. While sitting down, their hair magically became exactly what they wanted it to be. They stand up in their closet while you're watching the game. They walk out. And they say, how do I look? And you go, hey, you look good, let's go. You know where she goes? Right back to the closet. Now, let's switch that scenario a little bit. And she comes out while you're at the buzzer, right? You're watching the game, it's at the buzzer, she walks out and you're like, whoa, you look amazing. Where does she go? She goes to the party with confidence and has a great time. That is how we treat our patients with their insurance. If a patient calls and says, I have Delta Dental, do you take that? And you go, yeah, I think so, as long as it's PPO. That's saying, yeah, you look fine, let's go. They're going back to the Rolodex looking for another practice. However, if you flip the script on them and they say, do you take Delta Dental? You say, Delta Dental, you say? I love Delta Dental. That is the best insurance policy I've ever seen in my life. We have tons of patients with that, and it works great in our office. And yes, that's a little exaggerated. You don't have to go so crazy with it. But you tell them how great it is. We all hate Delta Dental with a passion. I would blow their building up if it weren't against the law. But I don't need to tell their customers that, because I want their customers to be my patients. And if I tell them that I love their insurance policy, even though we all hate the insurance company, they're going to go, oh, I have a lot more faith in this place. They say they love my insurance company. Nobody else has ever told me that. So that is how, and I understand that didn't answer the question of, are you in network? And because I know sometimes that comes back to you. And I will always tell a patient, yes, we take that insurance. It works great in our office. We have tons of patients that use it. I've been accused of lying to my patients by patients before and by other practices going, well, you know what they meant. They didn't ask me if I was in network. They asked me if I took the damn thing, which I do. I assign the benefits to me. I will do all the legwork. I will run that shit through, and I'll probably get you a better price and better care than you would have gone anywhere else, even as somebody that was in network. But I'm not going to tell them that. I'm going to say, I love that insurance. It works great here. And if they say, well, that's not what I asked, I want to know if you're an in-network provider. And I'm going to say, unfortunately, we are not contracted with that insurance company, but I'll tell you what we do. We take the assignment of the benefits. We're going to make sure that we maximize every single dollar of that policy for you, so you pay as little amount of out of pocket as you possibly can. That's what we'll do. But no, we are not an in-network provider for them. Let's go ahead and get you appointed. So you don't lie to them, but at the same time, don't assume what they asked. Don't put words in their mouth for them. And you're not a liar if you answer the question that was asked, even if you assume that they meant something different. I'm out of time, I think, but so can I do some more questions or not so much? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. No more questions. Thank you guys for participating. It was a lot of fun.